Welcome again to the Kitchen of the Celtic Caterer. I'm Chef Eric McBride here, and we have a little special edition today here, thanks to Clan McClellan here, Clan McClellan, who have asked us, and they're kind of our sponsor for the day, how to do one of the different types of Scottish desserts that we're going to be doing. So as you know, my name is Chef Eric McBride. I'm the executive chef and owner of the Celtic Caterer, and you can go and find me on my website, the Celtic Caterer, www.CelticCaterer.com, or on Facebook, the Celtic Caterer and Chef Eric McBride. Please actually go down, if you can see this, and go down and like our button if you see us on Facebook. So today we're doing one out of our Scottish cookbook, a Scottish dessert, and this one is called an orange chocolate whiskey mousse. Several of the things that the Scots really like, but whiskey being in there and oranges. And we're going to talk about why oranges are the #1 fruit flavor in all of Scotland. So first of all, to start with here, I've got some chocolate chip cookies, or chocolate chips anyway, not the cookies, but the chocolate chips. And we already put it into our pot and kind of melted it down a little bit. Starting to melt it down. We got a double boiler going here. And while this is melting down, this is all the chocolate flavor, but at the same time, this is all the sugar levels inside our dessert here. We're not having to go and add any more sugar to this food. One thing is key about Celtic desserts is they're not really overly sweet. They're just enough to make it all taste right. So we have our chocolate chips already here, a couple cups of chocolate chips here. When we're now melting it down, we need to go, and it's a little basic chemistry. We need to get a little measuring cup, and we need to add in our whiskey. Now, if you've seen our cooking demonstrations before, you know that I use a bell curve when cooking with whiskey. Irish whiskey is really good to go and drink with because they distilled it 3 or 4 times, though. It's not that great to go and drink, but not to cook with so much for them because it breaks apart. Bourbon, sour mashes, and blended scotches are our best type of whiskeys to go and cook with. And coming down would be our single malts because they're a little too expensive, and then our Islay scotches. The reason why we don't like to go and cook too much with those is because they have a nice peaty, smoky flavor, and in this particular dessert, it'll override the entire flavor. So we got some blended whiskey here. Now, when we're doing this, and this is a key thing to note, when you're adding your whiskey in here, and then whether you want to put a couple tablespoons of whiskey in or a 1/4 cup, which I'm doing right now, you need to go and remember exactly how much that you're going to add in, because the exact amount that you put into your dish, however amount of whiskey is, you need to counter it. You need to go and balance the whole thing with a little bit of heavy whipping cream. It needs to be exactly the same amount. You're not supposed to go and be doing anything where it's different for it all. So we got our heavy whipping cream in here. And we're going to mix this right into our chocolate. And let that melt on down. You want to mix it all in. In fact, I'm going to change out my double boiler just a little bit and get it down so I get some real heat. Now, we don't want to over burn our chocolate, but we do want to go and get to the point where it's all pretty well mixed in for it all here. In fact, we're going to go change out a little bit and get my little whiskey in here. Now, I like to go and cook this up really quickly, get it to a point where it's all melted out. But I don't want to go and get to the point where it's so hot because I'm going to be mixing, as in a mousse goes, a little bit of egg whites and egg yolks into it. And so we don't want to cook our eggs for a dish. We just want to get it warm enough, melted enough. And as you can kind of see right now, it's got a nice little melted taste to it. And so in that case, as long as I don't have any bits into it, we've got a nice little dish. I'll let that sit off to my side. In fact, I can go in just to keep it warm for the moment. I can put it right underneath the hot water. Now, we're going to be going to our other stage. And the other point we're going to do is the mousse uses eggs and egg whites and egg yolks. Now, there are some people who are very conscious about using egg whites and egg yolks because, well, they're worried about, having cooked. Have you ever heard of pasteurized eggs? Not pastured eggs, but pasteurized eggs. Those are eggs that you can actually go and buy at a few different markets here. And what they've done is they've taken the egg and submerged it into a steam bath for exactly 3 minutes, and then transferred all the eggs instantly into a ice bath. Been instantly being able to bring the temperature down. What it does is it allows to cook the eggs just to the point where it kills off the bacteria of the raw egg, but not enough to cook the egg for it all. Yes, these eggs are a little bit more expensive. Sometimes they're around about $4 a dozen or so in comparison, but that's what you want to do. Now, how many eggs you want to use for a dish really depends on how many people you're cooking for. If you've seen this demonstration before at any one of our Celtic festivals we've done across the nation, you normally know I use about a dozen so eggs. But we're only cooking for myself and a few friends that are locally here, and so we only want to do it. And I've already done some of them a little bit. I'm going to show you, this is a little trick that we do in restaurants. We get a nice clean glove here. I'm going to take our egg whites, and we're going to just use the gloved hand to keep it, and then I can take the egg yolk and place it off to the side there. And we'll do one, just a couple more. And you just open up your fingers just enough to let the egg whites go through. Now in this particular demonstration, I'm mixing the egg whites fast because I want to do pretty quickly for everybody here. But if I'm doing this in a kitchen where I've got a nice dishwashing hobart to go around, I would probably do the egg yolks first. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because it comes about the color when we put it all together at the end. So you take off that wee glove. Get us another one here. And in the meantime, we're going to go and take our egg yolks. Now you see where it is a nice little runny egg yolk for it all. See if we can't get that a little bit in the better for egg yolk. What we want to do is whip those up to the point where they get, as they say, whipped and stiff. We want it so strong that it's really, really heavy meringue. Aha, that's right. Got too many things on our plug systems here. There we go. All right. Now while those are whipping up, and I've got my egg yolks seared off to the side, we're going to go and start doing on the rest of the dish for it all. And the rest of the dish, what I need to do, while the egg white's going up, is to go for our oranges. Now I told you at the beginning that our oranges were the #1 fruit flavor in Scotland. Now there are no orange trees in Scotland, so how could this be? And here's the proof of it. If you happen to know what is the national soda pop of Scotland, those of you know it, it's called Iron Brew, which is an orange cream soda. And in fact, Scotland is the only country in the world where their national soda pop outsells Coca-Cola. So that tells you one thing about how much the Scots love oranges. The other one is that Absolute Vodka actually makes 3 different types of orange flavored vodka just for the Scottish market here for it. And then Aero Bar, chocolate bar, one of the few first places they launched their orange chocolate bar was up in Scotland. So why do the Scots love oranges so much? Well, it goes back during the Napoleonic era, where at that time the richest man in Scotland was the Duke of Argyll. And he was a bit of a dandy at the time, kind of a irresponsible thing. And so he used to go and ship up a shipload of oranges up from Spain. Well, he was rich enough, but in those days of sale, you go and ship a bunch of oranges up from Spain, you're lucky if you have maybe 10 or 20% that are actually edible by the time they get to Scotland. The rest is all wasted money. But he was a bit of a spendthrift. And when the Napoleonic Wars bring out, he had spent his money and bought himself a lieutenant colonelcy. We got to the point where even his own troops didn't really respect him too much, and he was later shipped off by Wellington to the Crown, to the Royal Court, where he spent the rest of his time there. In the meantime, in the meantime, the Duke of Argyll had several Scottish regiments, and these regiments, well, they would all be going, well, they're going to eat like the Duke. They're eating oranges because they're in Spain, and they were in Spain for over 8 years fighting the French. And so during this time, those soldiers got to have a real love affair for oranges. So I'm taking a little zester here, so we're going on our dish, and I'm just taking the outside edges of the oranges. Now, the orange you want to use, you want to find some that have the deepest grooves, kind of the most craggles, you could say, into it. That's the one where you're going to get better flavor for your zest. So anyway, those Scottish troops were eating oranges every day for breakfast time. Really got a hankering for oranges for it all. Well, the war ends and they all go back home to their things. Well, about a score of years later, the Age of Steam comes about. And somebody gets this great idea to bring oranges into Scotland. Okay? Because now under the Age of Steam, you can do it in a couple of days, and so your oranges get there quite ripe. So they brought the oranges, and little did they know at the time when they first got there that they had this ready-made market all the way across the country. So here it was, they went and had all these oranges, and you had all these veterans from all over the countryside, ones that were remembering the good old days when they used to eat oranges every day for breakfast. And so these are all venerated veterans, kind of like what we used to go and look at World War II veterans or Vietnam veterans for it all. And the population really says, hey, Dad loves it, Granddad really loves his oranges for it all. And they got to a point where at that moment, well, if it's good enough for them, it's going to be good enough for the rest of us. And so at that time, this love affair for oranges in Scotland was born. All because of the war. So we get our little oranges going here. I got one. I'm actually going to use two. I just like to go and have a little bit stronger. Now, you don't have to use an orange and a zester if you don't want to. You can use orange oil, and you want to use an organic orange oil. And so when you do, you want to use just about a capful, maybe a capful and a half. As you can tell, we're kind of close to an airport at the time. That sounded like several of them. Oh, if you come to any of my cooking demonstrations at any festivals, this is nothing. Wait till you have 6 bagpipe bands right behind your back and you're trying to do a demonstration. That's always a lot of fun. So, like I said, I like to get these zests off of about 2 oranges. Now, these things are really nice, these zesters. You get them at Bed Bath & Beyond for like about $5, and they get just enough, as you can kind of see, of the skin off without too much. I had this one gentleman came up to me one time. He seen me do a demonstration and he tried to repeat it, and he says, well, I got my I made it, but everybody didn't like it. They said it was a little too chunky. I said, chunky? What did you do? He says, well, I use my cheese grater, and this is, yeah, it does says that it has a zester on the side here, like this. Don't use these as a zester for it all. It will rip up to and really get really chunky flavoring. We want just the basic essence for it all. So now I've got, like I said, my oranges in there, and I'm going to take my chocolate, and we're going to go and mix all this in with our orange zest. And then I like to go and use just a little bit as well. In addition to all this, I like to go and use just a little bit of the juice. Not much, just squeeze a little bit. Don't put any, we want just a little bit of the juice. We don't want to go and put much of overpowering for it. These are nice and juicy oranges here. Well, I'm currently right now in California, so I would expect to have nice juicy oranges. So, now we go under our egg whites. We want them getting really beat up. And while this is all mixing together, and that's why I like to use these round bowls like this, because I can go and spin the bowl around and constantly keep folding our mixture together. Now I want to go and get the chocolate a little cooler, so I've got a second bowl here that's got a little ice in it, and we're just going to place that like on top. Now when we're making our dish, the chocolate is our major flavor. We have our orange flavor in here, we have the whiskey flavor in here, and we have the chocolate flavor. So this is our flavor. What the other key components are going to be is going to be our volume and our backbone. So egg whites are going to be our backbone. Or excuse me, another backbone. This is going to be our volume. This is going to be our... So see how it is? It's stiff. Really, really stiff. Now, one of the reasons why I said at the beginning, you normally want to go and do the egg yolks first if you're inside a place where you can change out your bowls or wash or whatever, and your egg whites second, is because egg whites are really, really, they're very, very sensitive to any other item that might be in the bowl at the time that you whip it up. Even a couple droplets of water can make it to the point where you could be whipping up the egg whites for half an hour and they still won't be stiff. It needs to be absolutely perfectly steroid clean. Very sterile clean. Now, help us out a little bit today. I've actually got a second bowl. Now, egg yolks are not quite as sensitive, so you don't have to worry about that much. And we can put our egg yolks in there. So we've all kind of seen what egg yolks look, right? For it all. And like I said, they're not as sensitive, so I can have a little bit of egg whites. I'm not having to worry about it. Normally I would clean this out really, really cleanly if I was doing it the other way around. But our egg yolks are not going to be quite as sensitive. Now we want to whip up our egg yolks to the consistency of an orange whip. If anybody remembers back in the day, they kind of, in the malls, used to have an orange whip. That's what you want to use, to be that thick. So in the meantime, we're going to take our bowl. I've got my chocolate that's cooled down. I don't want to get too cold, but I want it to cool down a little bit, and it's doing quite well that way. And we want to fold, as I said. Twist your bowl around and fold. Bring your spatula up from the bottom and fold the chocolate over. We don't want to mix this up too fast. The reason why is because we don't want to lose all this volume that we just put in. Mix this all together. We're not going to do too much of it right now. We just want to do a little bit of this. Because we want to make sure we put the rest of our egg yolks into it as well. Now if you want to, you can add, like I said, a little bit of orange juice in here to go and give it a little bit of juice. Now, here's the difference. People have asked me many times the difference between a mousse and pudding, like we've known jello pudding for all. When you get the difference for the things, it's mainly because there's an additional ingredient that you would add into the chocolate as you're mixing it, and that would be butter. Adding, say, a quarter cup of butter, melted butter, or a couple tablespoons of melted butter in with your chocolate keeps everything smoother, but it lets, because what the bubbles are doing, the egg whites are nothing more than bubbles, right? And so basically we're going to go and coat the bubbles each with a little bit of the egg yolk, which will give it a little bit of structure, and then flavor each bubble with the chocolate, whiskey, and orange flavoring for it all. Now if you add butter to the whole mixture, what does butter do when you get cold? When it gets cold, it gets nice and solid and hard. So what the little bit of butter into your chocolate does is give more rigidity to each little flavor bubble that you have. And that's why you have puddings really smooth. A mousse, which we're making here, is very light and very delicate. So when we put it into our bowl, we want to go and chill it for a couple hours. Having it get colder, and those of you who are out in Oklahoma might have ever seen me do some of this stuff. We had a demonstration a couple years ago when it was really, really cold outside. But having cold will actually help all the bubbles stay together and actually make your volume kind of grow a little bit. I'm going to check here, almost there for egg yolk. Like I said, now this dish is one of the many desserts that are in our Scottish cookbook. One of the most popular desserts out of Scotland is called a cranachan. Now, a cranachan is one of the simplest desserts ever. Basically what it is honey and whiskey whipped cream. Whipped cream added with honey and whiskey into it. And then you take fresh raspberries. You fold the raspberries into it. Then you take toasted steel cut oats, pin oats. steel cut oats, pin oats is what they call them over in Scotland, and just toast them a little bit in a frying pan, no oil or anything, just toast them a little bit, and then you sprinkle it on top. The oats make that whole dish because every bite you get that little bit of that whiskey and the honey and the whipped cream. The raspberries are the nice burst of a fruit flavor, and then the toasted steel cut oats kind of gives you a nutty oat flavor onto it, which just really makes it. And that is the simplest dessert in the world, called a cranach. All right, I think we're all good right now. Sometimes I like to whip this up for a long, long time, and if you are doing for a larger version or a larger volume for it all, adding to this, it'll make for a much, much better flavor for it. Okay. So there we have, we kind of want to whip it up to a point where it looks a little bit more like orange whip. We get all this goody stuff into it. So now we have all our ingredients, as you can kind of see, in our bowl right now. And we want to just very, very delicately keep twisting the bowl and bringing all the ingredients up and fold over on top. And you just keep this going, smooth action. Keep twisting the bowl so you can get everything along the edges. And then reach down to the bottom because that chocolate is always going to keep going down to the bottom. You don't want to put this in a mixer. You don't want to get impatient on this right now. Put it in a mixer because then your whole volume is just going to shrink to nothing. The slower, the easier you take at doing this, the more volume you're going to have for your dessert. Now you're seeing we're getting this kind of like a milk chocolate color. And you could use any of your chocolate that you wanted to use. You could use like what we use, which was just plain semi-sweet chocolates, but you could use dark chocolates in here. You could use white chocolate. Any one of these will work just the same. But I'm going to get this kind of a color for my mousse because I put the egg whites in first. If I had reversed this and did the egg yolks first, mix that in with the chocolate, and then added the egg whites, we actually get a darker color. And as I said before, the reason why I didn't do that is because normally I don't have a second bowl here, and if there was any contaminants after I've mixed in the egg yolks and then put the egg whites into it, I'd have been here, we would have never been able to go and get the egg whites built up. So here we go, we got this nice, and you want to keep turning this. You can see we're getting a better flavor, but you still got, as you're pulling in the bottom, constantly go through the center. Sometimes you're going to get some more streaks of chocolate, things that didn't get mixed in, and you want to keep this going until all the white has kind of disappeared. As you're going, sometimes some of the stuff just does not get mixed in all the time. It's a little bit of patience, but the flavor is immense. I actually, let's just put it this way. Gentlemen, you want to impress your wives? You want to go and make your date really, really happy for you? Make one of these for you. It's aesthetic. I've had too many ladies who've told me this is complete ecstasy as far as a dessert dish goes for it. So almost got, I got a little bit more of the chocolate in the center, I can see. There we go. Now, I've got my mixture. You'll want to go and take some sort of dessert dish that you want. And you'll mix this into it, pour that into it. And then what I would suggest then is wrap this up with plastic and place it in your refrigerator for a minimum of 2 hours. Now, the 2 hours is going to it's going to chill up. The bubbles are actually going to expand and it'll actually rise just a little bit. You need a bit of plastic wrap on top of it so it doesn't get that little filmy edge that can happen when it gets oxidized too much. Then what I like to do just before I serve it is put a little mandarin oranges. Put a single mandarin orange right on the top as a garnish. Now, only want to do that right at the moment you're about to serve, because this is a very, very delicate dessert. And the moment you put any fruit on it or anything like that, it'll hold for a little bit, but it's eventually going to sink. So you want to keep an eye. So this is something, like I said, out of our Scottish cookbook, orange chocolate whiskey mousse. It's a dish that came about from Scotland because of a lot of the influence of Scottish cooking. Borrows heavily from French cuisine for it all, and mousse is one of the ones that came in. You've heard me on talking my early demonstrations where we talk about how during the French Revolutionary period, when a lot of the different aristocrats had lost their lives, well, their chefs and their sous chefs, their whole culinary world had to find other places to work, and a lot of them came up to Scotland and eventually taught a lot of their cooking techniques to the Scots. So the Scots borrowed heavily upon French cooking as well. So here we go. Like I said, this is it, and we want to thank Clan McClellan for sponsoring us for doing this dish. I hope you all enjoy yourselves. I know you have a meeting coming up, and so enjoy, and as they say in Gaelic, slán flúr till we all meet again. Thank you very much.